See that girl? Frozen on the auditorium stage under that single harsh spotlight. That's Cha. The silence in here is deafening, right? A week ago, she was the undisputed, untouchable queen of Northwood High. Now the only sound is the quiet, crushing end of her social empire. So, how did she end up here, publicly disgraced, with everyone staring at her not with awe, but with pity? It all started when I, the new girl from the Philippines, decided I'd had enough. My first day of Northwood High just felt different. The air was thick with old money and a social hierarchy, so rigid you could feel it. My family moved to America for my dad's job, and while I was excited, I was also terrified. I grew up in Manila, a city of vibrant chaos. Northwood was quiet. The smiles were polite but miles away. My plan was simple: keep my head down, crush my classes, and maybe find one or two friends. I wasn't there to make waves. I was there to get a good education and not embarrass my parents. My name is Maya, and I've always been proud of where I come from. In the Philippines, we have this idea called pakikipagkapwa. It's about seeing the shared humanity in others, connecting on a deeper level. I walked through the halls, trying to see that in everyone, even when they stared at my woven backpack or my accent. And then I saw Charlotte, but nobody called her that. She was just Charlotte. She wasn't at the top of the food chain. She was the food chain, with spun gold hair and eyes that could freeze you from across the hall. She moved through the crowds like a shark, parting a school of fish, flanked by her two lieutenants, Tiffany and Jessica. I never wanted trouble, but the second Cha saw me, I knew my life was about to become a living hell. It happened in the cafeteria. I was sitting alone, enjoying the baon my Lola had packed, the little container of adobo rice. The smell was like a warm hug from home. Suddenly, a shadow fell over my table. "What is that smell?" Cha's voice was full of fake curiosity, but her eyes were pure ice. Tiffany and Jessica giggled right on cue. The whole cafeteria went quiet. All eyes on me. I looked up. "It's my lunch," I said, keeping my voice steady. "It's chicken adobo." Cha wrinkled her nose like she smelled a sewer. "It smells ethnic. Maybe you should eat that somewhere else. We wouldn't want to stink up the place, would we?" The laughter started small, then grew as everyone took their cue from her. My face was on fire, but when I looked at Cha, I didn't see a queen. I saw a deeply insecure girl who had to push others down to feel tall. I remembered my Lola's words: true strength doesn't need to step on others. So I just packed up my lunch, gave her a small, tight smile, and said, "You don't know what you're missing." As I walked away, I could feel her eyes drilling into my back, annoyed I hadn't cried. That was mistake number one. Not showing weakness just made her see me as a challenge. That lunch thing? That was just the first shot. Cha wasn't even close to done. Her next move was to try and humiliate me where I was most confident. The classroom. We were in AP World History, talking about ancient trade routes. Our teacher, Mr. Davison, was brilliant, but bored by just about everything. He asked if anyone knew about the maritime history of Southeast Asia. I raised my hand, excited to talk about the barangay boats and the trading networks that existed long before Europeans showed up. As I started sharing the stories my grandfather had told me, I saw Mr. Davison actually lean forward, interested. The class was listening, but then Cha cut in. "Oh my God, are you seriously giving a history lesson on your village? This is world history, not whatever island you're floated in from." My friends snickered, but this time something felt different. Other kids just looked awkward. A quiet artist named Liam, who sat in the back, actually rolled his eyes at her. And Mr. Davison looked annoyed. "That's enough, Charlotte. Maya is providing a valuable perspective that isn't in your textbook. Please continue, Maya." I did, but I made a mental note. Cha's power wasn't absolute. It was built on fear, and a little authority could shut it down. More importantly, her cruelty came from being completely clueless. She wasn't just mean, she was ignorant. That was her weakness, and right. Then I decided that knowledge was going to be my weapon. The attacks kept coming, each one a little more vicious. She accidentally spilled a latte on a research paper I'd spent weeks on, whispering, "I guess you'll have to rewrite it. Should be easy for a genius like you." She started a rumor that I was only at Northwood on a diversity scholarship, trying to paint me as stupid. Each time I felt that flash of anger, but I didn't let her see it. Instead, I just watched. And I listened. I saw how she treated her so-called friends, Tiffany and Jessica, like personal assistants, constantly criticizing their clothes, their makeup, their opinions. I saw how she bragged about her family's money, but then I noticed on the sign-up sheet that her dad's last name was different from hers. A name I recognized from some famous super reclusive tech guy. Interesting. I watched her in class. Her scum word was an afterthought to her social status. Her essays were all flash, no substance, just big words. That didn't mean much. That's when the plan started clicking into place. She wanted to use my heritage to shame me, so I would use it to bring her down. The final straw was the announcement for the annual and cultural showcase. It was this huge deal, where students could present something about their heritage. The winner got a big scholarship and a feature in the local paper. When they announced it, Char leaned over to me and whispered, "Don't bother entering. No one wants to see some folk dance with coconuts. I'm going to win. I'm doing a presentation on Parisian haute couture. It's actually, cultured." That was it. I knew I had to end this. But I wasn't going to play her dirty game of rulers and pranks. No, I was going to play my own game. I would let her build her own stage, hand her the mic, and let her perform her own epic failure. I smiled back at her, a real smile this time. "We'll see, Char. May the best culture win." She just scoffed, totally clueless. The game was already on. I mean, the nerve, right? It's one thing to be a bully, but it's another to be that arrogant while doing it. If you're ready to see Char get exactly what she deserves, and trust me, it's coming, then make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss how it all goes down. My plan was simple, really. 3 parts: bait the trap, expose the fraud, and finally, celebrate the truth. Part 1 was easy. I signed up for the showcase. For my act description, I just wrote a modern interpretation of a traditional Filipino value. It was vague enough to make Char curious but also dismissive. And it worked, she told everyone I was probably going to weave a basket on stage. "It's so rustic," she'd say with a faint pity sigh. Bless her heart. Perfect. The more she underestimated me, the better. While she was busy making fun of my village performance, I moved on to part 2. Exposing the fraud. This meant research. My quiet friend from history class, Liam, turned out to be a digital wizard. I told him what Char had been doing, and he was all in. "She called my art depressing scribbles in front of the whole art class last year," he told me, his jaw tight. "Yeah, I'd love to help you take her down." I gave him the different last name for her father, and her bragging about her mom being a player in the fashion world. A day later he came back with a goldmine. Turns out Char's mom wasn't in fashion. She was a ghostwriter for academic papers and creative projects. And Char's Parisian haute couture presentation, a recycled paper her mom had written for a college student 2 years ago. Liam found the original student's blog post. With the whole thing, Char had barely changed a word. But that wasn't the bombshell. The real bombshell was her final project for global economics. The topic: emerging markets in Southeast Asian textiles. She had just turned in this incredibly detailed paper full of intricate designs and deep cultural analysis that got her a perfect grade. When I saw the designs, I got chills and recognized that they weren't just inspired by Filipino textiles, they were direct, uncredited copies of the work of a legendary Tiboli weaver from Mindanao, a woman whose art my own grandmother collected. Char hadn't just plagiarized a college student. She had stolen the sacred art of an indigenous Filipino tribe and passed it off as her own. That was it. That was the heart of the plan. She wouldn't be humiliated because I insulted her. She'd be humiliated when everyone saw the truth. That the girl who called everyone else fake and uncultured was the biggest fraud in the entire school. Part 3. Celebrate the truth. This was my performance. For weeks I didn't just practice a dance, I practiced telling a story. I spent hours on video calls with my Lola, learning not just the steps, but the meaning behind them. My performance would be a mix of dance and spoken word, a tribute to the Tipoli people's artistry. I also made a slideshow, pictures of the real Tipoli patterns, side by side with screenshots from Char's paper. The last slide was a photo of the weaver herself. I sent the file to Liam, who was running tech for the show. He knew exactly what to do. The trap was set. All Char had to do was walk right into it. The night of the showcase, the auditorium was buzzing. The guest judge was this sharp local journalist, the kind who doesn't mess around. Everything was ready. Char went on 2 acts before me. The presentation was exactly what I expected. Slick, impersonal, and totally stolen. She smiled charmingly at the audience while reading from a teleprompter. People clapped politely as she walked off. Stage, she passed me in the wings. Good luck with your little dance, she sneered and went to sit in the front row. Perfect. Then it was my turn. I walked to the center of the stage, wearing a simple black outfit with a single authentic Tenalac scarf, the same textile she had stolen. I took a breath. Good evening, I began, my voice clear and strong. We often think of culture as something to display, a costume, a song. But where I come from, culture is also about values. It's about integrity, respect, and community. We have a concept called pakikipagkapwa. It means seeing the shared humanity in everyone. I glanced at Char. She was already bored, fiddling with her soulmate. Tonight, I want to tell you a story about that value, I said. A story of our true art and those who tried to steal it. Soft, haunting music began to play. I started to dance, my movements telling the story of a weaver, her hands moving with grace, her spirit pouring into her work. Then I began the spoken word. Imagine a woman, my voice still the silent root. In a small village, she weaves the stories of her ancestors. Each pattern is a prayer, each knot a piece of her soul. This art, called Tanalak, is sacred. That the word Tanalak. I saw Char's head snap up. Confusion, then panic flashed in her eyes. This art is a gift, I continued, my voice getting stronger. But what happens when someone takes that gift? Not with gratitude, but with greed. When they strip it of its soul and call it their own. I stopped dancing at the front of the stage. True culture isn't about what you can claim. It's about what you honor. To pass off someone's sacred heritage as your own isn't just plagiarism. It's a profound disrespect. It is the opposite of pakikipagkapwa. I looked straight at the tech booth. Liam, I said into the mic, now. The giant screen behind me lit up. On the left, a beautiful, intricate Tilalak tapestry. On the right, a screenshot from Char's perfect paper with the identical pattern. The audience gasped. Liam flashed the next slide. Another pattern, another of Char's original designs, and another. The evidence was undeniable. Char had gone ghost white. She looked around wildly as hundreds of students turned to stare at her, their faces filled with shock and disgust. Her friends, Tiffany and Jessica, literally leaned away from her. Like her, lies were contagious. Then came the final slide, a beautiful, dignified portrait of the Timboli weaver, her name and village credited below. Underneath it, a quote, "Our art is our life. It is not for sale. It is to be honored." I turned my back on the audience and faced her image. "This woman's name is Yabing Masalon Dulo," I said. My voice full of emotion. She is a national treasure in my country. Her art, which was stolen for a high-ski paper, represents 1,000 years of history, and she deserves our respect. I bowed to the image, then turned and bowed to the audience. For a second there was that same heavy silence from the beginning. Then the room exploded. It wasn't polite clapping, it was all. Students were on their feet. Mr. Davison was beaming, clapping louder than anyone. The journalist was writing furiously, looking from the screen to me, to a trembling Cha. Cha just sat there frozen, pinned to her seat by the sound. Her smug mask had completely crumbled. Tears were welling in her eyes, but no one moved to comfort her. In that moment, she wasn't a queen. She was just a fraud, exposed and alone, humiliated not by an insult, but by the simple, crushing weight of the truth. The fallout was instant. The next day at school, everything had changed. Cha's throne was empty. No one followed her. Tiffany and Jessica walked the halls alone. The journalist's article came out. 2 days later, a scathing expose on academic dishonesty and cultural appropriation, with Cha right at the center. The school launched a formal investigation. She was stripped of her grades, and her dad, the reclusive tech mogul, quietly pulled her from Northwood a week later. Just like that, she was gone. But I didn't become the new queen. That was never the point. I didn't want a throne built on fear. What I found was so much better. Respect. People didn't just know my name, they knew my story. Kids I'd never spoken to would stop me to ask about the Philippines, about tinalak weaving, about my Lola. Liam became one of my best friends. I found my people, genuine, curious, and kind. We'd eat lunch together, and the only comment I ever got about my adobo was, "Can I try some?" I'd won the scholarship, but the real win wasn't the money. It was proving that you don't have to become a monster to beat one. My heritage, the very thing Cha tried to use against me, ended up being my greatest strength. The values my Lola taught me, integrity and pakikipagkapwa, were more powerful than any social status. I didn't humiliate Cha by being cruel. I just gave her the stage and let her own ignorance do the rest. I just stayed true to myself, and in the end, that was more than enough. Thanks for sticking with my story. If you've ever felt like an outsider, I hope this is a little reminder of the power you have just by being you. For more stories about finding your voice, don't forget to subscribe and check out this other video on the screen. See you next time.